That's what's interesting about this, right? Is every state is different. The rules and compliance are different. The logos and the packaging. You'll see a California logo. On here you have to have an Oregon logo in Oregon, and so keeping track of all that is tough. And then also just waiting for when federal regulation hits, is there going to be a federal rules on top of that? Are people going to all conform to the same rules? It's a really hard industry to predict. And that's part of what makes it exciting. But also when you're in a business our size, we're projected to be, in the 100 million plus this year in terms of revenue. You're trying to keep all these things in mind as you plan to grow a business of that size is very complicated.
Yeah, and that's what I've thought too. I was like, I could see it being stressful in that regard, where it's like you're building this, all of a sudden federal could come in and say something crazy. And then, but I imagine if, it is what it is.
Yeah. And we do a lot of scenario planning. So, because you can't just say, oh, it's going to be, whatever happens. We have to kind of, we look, that was what it was for a while. But again, at this size, we have to be like, all right, so if federal legalization happens, interstate commerce is allowed. Here's the basic level of our plan. If federal legalization happens, but you can't be vertically integrated. Okay, here's how our focus would be. Like all these are things that could potentially happen. And we have to at least have a couple bullet points of what our strategy is for each, and then kind of change those as time goes on, as we get better at the things, or our business model changes, or we make a new acquisition, or new things come up in different states. And again, it's challenging, but I feel like that's the best way to look at it is, what are these scenarios? How we adapt it? How does that change over time? And just make sure we're prepared to work through it.
Yeah, that's it's nice that you guys are ahead of it. Like you said, at your size, you got to be, ready for everything, and at the drop of a pen, ready to.
Yeah, it's a lot, but that's what's exciting.
Yeah,
And then just knowing you're building it's all about building a culture where it's going to be chaotic. People are naturally resistant to change. This industry is changing extremely dramatically, especially California cannabis. Like products, you've been in it. Products have been so refined they're coming so fast, and the trends have changed faster than any other industry. So being able to keep up with that, plus the federal, you just have to build a group of people in a culture that are saying, all right, whatever it is, sign me up for it. We're going to do it, and then people who are confident enough in their ideas, knowing, hey, guess what? We may get some of these things wrong, but we have to act. And so that's kind of what we focus on every day. And I think we've built the right group who's working through that right now.
I definitely agree with you too. And like with your brand, so when you're looking at a brand, let's say you're looking at XYZ brand in the future, what sticks out to you? What are you kind of looking for? The brand staying true to the culture, obviously, with Kurova being a big one like that. What else is important to you?
Like legacy brands are really interesting. Where brands have been around for a while, just because it's especially in California, where we've had 10 years of from gray area to where we are today of cannabis being legal in some way. Is if people know them, if people have a nostalgic feeling or an excitement when they hear the name, like that's really important, because a cannabis consumer today is likely a cannabis consumer for life. And so just them having that affiliation with the brand when there's so many new brands trying to break in is something we've kind of really centered around. Is like, all right, let's take people who have real stories and kind of real narratives and who have kind of authentic roots, and maybe they've had ups and downs, but we know that customers know them. We know that they've been through all these kind of trials. We feel that's really important to us. And then also, do they know what their demographic is and what they're doing, what differentiates them? Like when it comes to Kurova, if someone's asked me what's the difference, like, hey, it's a high potency focused brand. Whenever we go into any category, we're trying to be just a little more potent than somebody else. Same thing with sticks. We're trying to be, we want to mass produce, and we want to be as consistent as possible. Like, what are those differentiators? And I think if a brand has a story, has differentiators, and then I think that's interesting. But product market fit is also the big one. Like, is it something that consumers try and then want to try again? And I think that a lot of companies are still finding that, because the industry as an overall, consumers are still trying to find what's the perfect cannabis experience for me. I think it's going to take a couple of years for that to kind of fully set in, and some of those experiences may not even be developed yet.